I probably should do this. Let's see. Is everything good? I think. Ooh, we got some thunder here. Hold on. Okay. How's things going? Okay. I think the stream is up and working, right? Let's see. Audio's good. Whoever's around. Hmm. Okay. I'll just wait a little bit until like officially get started here. Just testing out levels. See everything is good. Get the mic set. How's everyone doing this fine evening? You're out in the U.S. I guess very early in the morning if you're in Europe. Oh wait, is my resolution really low? No, it looks okay. For some reason I thought it was bad. I'm just testing some stuff. That should be locked. Let's. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just trying to test a few different layouts and stuff here. Um, I know my chat. I should clear this real quick. Start captioning. Yay. Okay, I started saying things. Alrighty. There we go. I think it works now. Yay. Okay. Yo, what's up, Mighty Sandwich? Long time no see. Yeah. Just testing some things here. I wish my camera wasn't like right here because I have to look above my screen. I wish there's a magic camera that like sits inside your screen so I can actually be looking at it directly. But this is probably the best we can do. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it's been a rough month and a half. I think last time we streamed was mid July, in fact. But a lot of things come up one after another. Not least of all getting COVID. That was not fantastic. Despite having 3 vaccines already, I still got pretty nasty fever. But none, maybe cough, tiredness. Still kind of feel like I'm recovering from it. It's hard to tell because I've had asthma since I was a kid, so it's very much like, am I having an allergy response to the season change, or is it the COVID? I don't know. Yeah. What's everybody been playing lately? I've been playing a lot more Strive than I had been. Personally, I was trying to learn how to play with the hitbox style layout with the jump on the thumb, just so I can get used to that layout. I was curious, like, what is it like learning that? How difficult it is? What kind of advantages does it give you immediately? Some things are really obvious, like blocking is just way easier on it. Blocking high to low, it's just infinitely easier because you precisely know when you're holding down back or you're holding backwards. On a stick, it's very ambiguous. Cool. Yeah, a lot of Bridger players. Far as I could tell, I jumped on ranked. Been playing a lot of that. Pretty much nothing. Yeah, I had a lingering cough too. Mighty Sandwich. It's one of those lasting side effects of it that kind of sucks. More than kind of sucks. Yeah. I started playing finally Hollow Knight. It's a cool game. I've only played about 30 minutes of it, but I'm excited to get back into it. Oh yeah, just for everybody coming by who's here now, let me see what it looks like in those terms. Whoa, that is minimized. Okay. Okay, we got a few people. Well, just to say a little bit about what we're doing, getting started here, all the nice things. Since it's been a little while, I just thought we'd chat a little bit instead of like jumping right into code. I had a few things I've been thinking about with game development and work in general, how we actually approach this kind of stuff. So I just thought maybe I'll just talk a little bit about that, and then we'll jump in a little back into it. I'm sorry if people are like ready, excited to get right into code, but yeah. Great. Yeah, I wish I had time to watch more of the game dev streams. You know, personally, a lot of the programming streams I can't focus on because you have to be, they're mostly just like guys coding. A lot of them are. I do like the handcraft kind of stuff, you know, people who are working on animating or um, pixel work, making music. That's also great. Like all the crafty stuff. And that actually kind of gets me started what I've been thinking about lately, like the intersection of craft and engineering when it comes to like game programming. You know, I'm approaching my 10-year anniversary here since I joined a proper game studio. I had been working on games previously as a contractor up to that point, but I'm just kind of like thinking this as my milestone. Um, and I had previously did worked in like you know, full stack as a full stack developer. You know, server backend, front end, web, even Android, and Java programming. So I kind of have a perspective on both sides of kind of the well, entertainment and then like what do you call it, like core software development or something. Um, but yeah, I was just like, you know, is programming a craft? Is it a discipline? Well, it's kind of both. You know, when we're trying to think ahead into the future, when we're trying to make plans, right? We want to make sure we don't paint ourselves into a corner. That kind of planning is engineering, and it really needs to be treated as such as really should be disciplined when it comes to those kind of things. And I think a lot of us are not, because it is entertainment and because we like so much to get in the weeds and start coding and like actually doing stuff because that feels really good when you get started. But it's so easy to you know miss the forest for the trees or the other way around. But what we really need to do is sit down and do long-term planning, which I've tried to do with this project as well. But I have a little bit of foresight because I have worked on fighting games before, so I can kind of think ahead about what needs to be done. Um, but on the other hand, I personally do like the craft aspect of it. I don't know if anybody saw my Twitter thread from a few weeks ago, but I kind of got interested in computers very early on, back like when Jurassic Park came out. You know, that was a huge introduction to computer graphics, right? Special effects to a lot of people. They had like a making of Jurassic Park. I think it was narrated by James Earl Jones. It was amazing. Like I love watching that thing. I recorded on VHS and watched it over and over again. I was like, I think it was like, man, when I grow up, I'm gonna go work at ILM. I think up till that point, I don't know, it was like seven, six, seven. No, it was a little older than that, maybe close to 10. But yeah, after Jurassic Park came out, I watched that video so many times, and up until then, I was like, I want to be like, I'm gonna be a pilot or I'm gonna be an astronaut, you know, like typical things a lot of kids want to be. But at that point, I was like, no, I wanted to be like a special effects artist, you know. So I started like looking into what we had on our computer. I was like, is there any like 3D programs you could download from the internet? You know, at the time, it was just a 56K, or maybe it was even slower at that point modem. So any program you download took, especially the big 3D packages, would take like days or whatnot. Um, so eventually I found like a very free um, ray tracing tool called Povray. And pretty much you had to write C code to describe the scenes. And I was like, okay, so I had to like learn how to do that. So that's kind of my introductory to programming. And then from there, I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And so I went and branched out and I learned BASIC and stuff, which is kind of backwards for a lot of people. But I ended up programming on like QBasic on, you know, our Windows 95, I think 3.11 machine or something like that. And I went back and learned actually GW Basic after I got a hold of my own machine that wasn't like our family shared PC. I started writing really simple like text-based games, and then at school we had, you know, the classic Apple IIe with the green screen, and if you didn't put a disk in, it booted directly into a BASIC interpreter, so you can just play around with that, make programs. but it couldn't save anything from a lot of from what I'm aware. Maybe you would had like write some code to do it to save your program or something. Um, but yeah, that got me really into programming at that point. So, but the thing is, even as a kid, another reason I was really into the special effects stuff is because I was always making like I was always sculpting, I was always drawing, I was always making costumes. I was doing stop motion animation, so anything I can get my hands on to like make things real, right? I was just super interested in movies. Like that period in the '80s and early '90s was like great action films that really made use of all the techniques that culminated, Star Wars, everything. Um, well, speaking of which, what kind of got me started on this line of thinking is I watched that new ILM documentary on Disney Plus, and wow, that is super interesting. If you haven't seen that, you should go in. Like, the, I didn't realize like all these names that pop up in the movies for the last 50 years, like Phil Tippett and stuff. They're all over the production of Star Wars, which is crazy to think about, right? They kind of got these guys together they knew each other, because they worked on various projects together. And I up until that point, special effects there wasn't like specialists who could do all that stuff. And they got together to make this movie, and they got the ball rolling on this whole industry, which is just wild. It's also makes me think of the nature of like, working with people, doing good work, showing people what is possible. If you work with somebody and you just get the job done, and you're going to make a lot of friends, right? They're going to want to work with you again. So that's something very important. I was writing something about talking about the nature of work. I've worked with a lot of great people, and I would love to work with them again. And hopefully that's the case with people I've worked with in the past as well. But yeah, just getting back into the idea of engineering versus craft when it comes to programming. Well, we are in the entertainment industry. If you're making games, you're here to entertain people. You're there to provide fun. You're there to show them something they haven't seen before. We're not writing code for code's sake, right? What we're doing as core engineers or core programmers for these games is providing tools for ourselves and the rest of the team to make the thing that's actually entertaining. So we need to be careful not to focus so much on what the programming needs are, but we really have to keep in mind the hard constraints that we do have. So we have to be disciplined. We have to behave like engineers, but also we have to keep in mind we're making tools for people. We're making tools for people, and we're making machines that end up being pieces of entertainment for players. So you just always have to keep that in mind. Yeah, and actually, personally, I do love making tools. That's why I got in this in the first place. Everywhere I've been, I was like, hey, designers, if you need a tool, just anything you need, let me go. I'll go do it right away. Be happy to make it. I don't know if anybody seen like the tools I made for Fearless Knights, but I maybe got a little too into making those tools, but instead of making the full game itself, but it definitely was a lesson in learning that, okay, this is really what I want to do. So I think the ability to make tools, having the framework to make it more readily accessible for more people is important in that regard. But yeah, just going back, and despite me saying we have to be disciplined about that as engineers, we have to have foresight, think about our constraints. But on the other hand, again, it is entertainment, and sometimes designers need to write code as well. I worked as a designer on Killer Instinct, and pretty much most of my day was writing code. Now, I've kind of flip-flopped between should designers program or should programmers program, right? Programmers are trained in the disciplines that are required to make readable, maintainable, bug-free code, whereas designers typically are not, right? I was more of an exception because I did come from a software background, so I knew those kind of things. So I was like, well, maybe all designers should be trained in that regard. but there's something to be said about intuition, writing code that produces something that's fun. And you don't want to be blocked by um, things like thinking about performance, thinking about long-term maintainability. If you think so much about this stuff and your job is to make something that's just fun, you're gonna get stuck. You're gonna forget about the long-term goals. But yeah, that's mostly what I've been thinking about lately, and just thinking about collaborating with people. How do we get to that point where like we're all working on this single goal together, and we need to stop. Well, often it does happen where you get focused on your own thing instead of the big picture. Sorry, ranting a little bit much about that. I don't see any responses on the chat. It's usually easier to talk about this stuff when I have another person on the side of the table. Just something else I did want to say for people who are getting into game development or trying to figure out like what you want to do for your career. You know, there's also this common advice they tell you: do the thing that you're super interested in or super engaged by. And I think being engaged by a thing is critical for getting work that's satisfying and you can do long term. But there's another factor: is you really should do things that you're good at. You know, you're not going to start great, obviously, but you know, you need to find a way to figure that out. Because if you can do something well and you can show other people, it's just going to lead to so many things that you can't even imagine, right? It's going to lead to working with others who appreciate your work, right? So you should just try as many things as possible, right? I flip-flop between what if I'm going to be a software engineer, was going to be a designer, was I going to be a musician? There was a long time I was thinking I was actually going to go into like playing trumpet in in orchestras, things like that. It was kind of a hard decision for me going into college. I thought maybe I was going to just do English teaching in Japan or something, just to get over here, and because I just wanted to be out of the country at a very young age. So I tried a lot of different things and tried to figure out what you're good at. Um, I really didn't get in game industry into my late 20s, so it sometimes it does take time. But I had always been working on games in my free time. I think people knew I worked on an early version of Skullgirls. I had fighting game stuff even before then. But yeah, I think this what got me along this lines of thinking was that new Sakurai video. I don't know if you've been watching his YouTube channel. Um, he has little short snippets of wisdom on his sorry, let me pull it up. Yeah, I think we have this here. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Okay. Yeah, he has little snippets of wisdom here that I think are great. Like, what does it mean to be a pro, you know? He says so much good stuff here. And Sakurai is great at, like, cutting down the fat on things he wants to talk about. You know, he's just, like, precise. Granted, these videos are edited, but I think it's great what he's doing. He's sharing, he's not looking to make any kind of profit from this. And I think it's good for a lot of people who are trying to figure out whether or not they want to be part of the industry, right? If you see this kind of thing, you're like, I'm all for it, then great. It might be something you want to pursue. Yeah, and one thing he definitely he focuses on is, do you make games just because you like games? That's a different thing, right? If you just want to make games because you think games are cool, that's totally fine. But you have to figure out whether or not you like to make things. Do you like to work with people? Do you appreciate the long hours it takes to whittle away at something? I forgot who was saying it. I forgot which video I was watching, but somebody said, um, was it is perfection is the enemy of great or something? There's some kind of phrase like that, but basically it means like it's so easy to just start working at something until you just change things, and but you have to really know when to stop as well. Yeah. Um, yeah, so if this kind of stuff sounds good to you, make games, but just to let you know, it is a long path, and sometimes it is not clear whether or not it's something you should continue doing. But for me, it's the only thing I'm. And Sakurai says this as well. He says, "I do this because I'm good at it." Right? I don't say I do it because I'm good at it. I kind of it's more like, well, this is kind of the best thing I know how to do, so I'll continue doing it for now. I don't know if that's all the things I want to get off my chest regards to this stuff, and I'm always open for discussion. And of course, you may have your own opinions, and those are perfectly valid. But I'm just trying to put my perspective on things, just to take it from the land of thought and abstract things and put it into concrete form. Um, yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to bring up. It's just been a while, so I just felt like chatting for a while, kind of get back into the flow of things. Yep. Um, okay, just for now, let's jump back into what I've um, been doing and such. But yeah, I just just talking like this. Sometimes I do want to do this like in form of, in our streams. Um, it's strange enough in my real life. I don't get the chance to often talk about like this core nature of work and game development kind of stuff with people. I work mostly from home, so and it's actually kind of hard to socialize these days, obviously in real life, especially with people in your industry. Surprisingly, where I live in Tokyo, there's a lot of companies, but still, it's fair. A lot of people just kind of keep themselves, strangely enough. Okay, yeah. So I think last time, let's just make a clean start here. So maybe I'll edit it so it starts from here. Okay. So last time, about a month and a half ago, we were working on like implementing these flipping characters to face their opponent thing. But then I realized, well, the characters we have are basically circles, so they don't really represent facing one direction or the other very well. Um, so what I end up having to do is add support for sprites. And let's see, let me close this out and look at our commits. So what was that? July set 14th. So we went in and added like image loading support. Nothing crazy, nothing important, but I did upload these images for the two characters. And normally I wouldn't do this for a game. Like you wouldn't make like complete separate image sets, but I had already prepared these for another project. I think it was my rollback test project, and so I just imported those. And then I added a test sprite reference and to our character data, and yeah, this is just all the like supporting of the image sequence kind of stuff. I'm not gonna review that too much because I think I did it on stream, or maybe I did not do it on stream. I forget exactly, but anyway, then I added support for drawing. Let me jump for that. Yeah, actually drawing the sprites where this is in the game. So I basically it's like draw state thing that I supported. Just took an entity and the game state. Not doing anything too crazy here. Basically, I get the state machine, get the current state, and I use that to look up what animation we're going to use. So I get the action name from the state. The action name is referenced to data in our character data set. And then I look for the action from the name. If we have the action, I get the image range for that animation we're using. So I have this get active image function, which does that purpose. And frames elapsed for how many frames have passed since the start of the action, right? Okay, and then we get the texture data from the image sequence. and we just store that in our draw state. And then we get the offset as well right here. So we search for the sequence, given the image map and the sequence. We just pull that image in from the sequence using the current image range. Image range just being a number of frames from what start frame and for how long we show an image. And get the offset for that and add it to our draw state. And then we just return that. And once we call prepare draw state, well, we could just jump in here. It'll be easier than see the diff. What file is that? It should be in game, I think. Yeah, should be in game. Yeah, when we pass in the game state again, we pass in entity 0, entity 1, which is the first two entities in our game. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, and then we get the value returned and pass it to render draw state. And render draw state is very simple. We just pull in the texture. This function takes a texture and takes an offset, and the color is white. So we don't multiply it by anything, any special color, and it draws. And we should be able to just run it. Everything should be okay here. There's nothing really special about that. I guess the thing to point out is in a lot of modern games, you kind of set up a state structure, and that gets passed off as commands to the GPU eventually. Usually, the game thread or one game worker thread will prepare a draw state somewhere. That might actually be in a special render thread that handles that. So you have a render component that's attached to an entity, and the game thread never actually touches it unless it's like changing, like, I don't know, the animation or something on a mesh. Yeah, as you can see, the character there's no blue character yet, because I'm actually not loading the blue colors at the moment. What I want to do is actually have an option to do that, but we'll get to that. Yeah, so we can jump. The jump is very floaty right now. I'm not sure why I can't do forward and up at the same time. Did I break something? Okay, I think we never supported that. That's what's going on. But yeah, you can see we have hit stop and hit shake. Yeah, just a quick review on that. Yeah, nothing special here. So we have all the sprite stuff set up. I might add a little bit more support for showing that other color character, but I don't know if you noticed one thing. The character isn't flipped right now, right? Well, at least the character is flipped. The sprite is not flipped. And that was kind of the whole point of putting the sprites in, was to show how which way the character is facing. Sword, if it's not clear, the sword is forward. Okay. I think we had a bunch of we pause and frame step stuff, so we can actually even test that, I think. Yeah, frame step, show the animation. I do want to show more debug information here at some point as well for our project. Okay, messages all over the place. Okay, today. So in our planning document, we had implementing flipping characters to face their opponents. So just thinking a little bit about it, we would need to get the flip state of the character and apply it to our sprite, right? Or to drawing our sprite. One thing that's commonly done is just to multiply the X scale, the horizontal scale, by -1. That's a quick way to do it in a lot of frameworks. You could actually apply a rotation if you wanted to, if you didn't have backface culling, because technically it's probably being drawn with a quad or two triangles with just with texture mapping. I'm actually not sure how Raylib ends up doing it, but that's one common way to handle sprites. So we have this draw texture thing. It's like first of all, how do we manipulate how do we actually ask Raylib to draw our sprite the other way? Well, let's just go into, I think, the documentation. This is a cheat sheet. Let's look for this draw texture thing. So we have draw texture V, which takes a vector. Draw texture EX, which takes a rotation. I think it will rotate it probably along the Z. If you consider this Z axis in computer graphics, Z is up in a lot of 3D applications, but Z in computer graphics is towards the screen. It could either be right-handed rule, which means the positive Z's towards you and negative Z's that way, or it could be left hand. Well, sorry, forget exactly. I've now forgot. I never remember the actual roll. So it's like you face, so positive Z would be this way, and then I screw it. I'm completely yeah, I'm never gonna remember it. So I think it might be left hand roll for computer graphics because Z is positive this way, X, everything's inverted here. So just think of it being the other way around. So let me pretend this is my left hand, but it's actually my right hand. But yeah, X going to the right, Y going up in computer graphics, and then Z coming in. I'm not doing the hand roll anymore because I always get confused by like binary things. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. Forgive my my simplicity sometimes. Okay. So yeah, you can draw a texture quad, which takes a texture, takes some tiling rules, offset, a rectangle quad. I assume that, I don't know what the tiling parameter is for. Oh, maybe it's just repeating the texture. You draw a texture polygon directly as well. Okay. Is there some way to like apply a transformation, like a scale matrix? Oh, there's a scale. Well, that's just a scalar. It's not a vector, so we can't just apply -1 or anything like that. Huh. Okay. Enough of this. Go to trusty internet. Draw texture rect. Draw texture rect, or draw for the source rectangle defined with negative width. Oh, okay. So we can just draw a rectangle. So the tricky thing here is we don't know the size of our sprite. Well, let's just give it a quick test here. I'm sorry a lot of this is not core fighting game stuff at the moment, but I do want to demonstrate flipping. So we need a rectangle. Is it RL? It must be RL.rect, right? And hold on. What is a rectangle? Let's go to the definition if we can. XY width height. Okay. I assume it's top left and then drawn down. Okay. So let's just go crazy here. This is not going to be scaled right or anything. We're actually have to pull information from our texture to do this right. So draw rectangle. We got the texture. We got to do the texture as well. Okay, the texture here, and we got the RL here. RL just being arraylib. It's just our imported module name. Texture rect source. And we have to use a vector instead of a x and y coordinate. Okay. And so the vector, what do we have to do? RL dot vector 2, maybe, dot x. I'm going to assume it's going to be, what is our state dot x, and then dot y equals state dot y. That should be good, right? Oh yeah, sorry. I also got a new keyboard, so if it's too clicky, let me know. But yeah, I needed something new. My fingers were kind of hurting me with too much pressure to press down, or just something about the feel was bothering me. Okay, let's stop the game, run it again. I'm just prototyping the drawing right now, right? I'm not really caring so much about being correct at the moment. That's weird. I don't want anything to do with that. What's going on here? We didn't get a compile error? Oh, there we go. Use of undeclared operator R. Okay, so I just mistyped something. Oh. Takes a vector too, right? Yeah. Expected to float found at 932. Where is that? Where does it take a float? Is vector 2 must be a float? Interesting. Okay. I guess it does make sense. It's kind of a little bit annoying that draw texture I think doesn't take a float, but what is zig cast into float? Okay. Where is it? Cast to float. Is there float cast? What are our casts? Is it a compiled time function? Compiled time. What do we got? Is it float cast? Converts from one float to another. This but okay. Float to is there int to float? Int to is it oh. Okay. Oh, here we go. It should be int to float, right? Destination type and any type. Okay. So we need int to float here. I'm just gonna pop this down another line just so it's easier to read. So we got int to float f32 and then value, I think. That should work. Oops. Yeah. And then we got I do prefer cast to be explicit like this instead of implicit. In C, it would just be implicit. It would compile, or C++ it would compile, maybe throwing you an error. Oh, I wrapped the whole thing, didn't I? It might throw you an error, but I might throw you a warning, but you can easily miss problems caused by it. I just prefer things to be explicit, and that's why I like it. I like this about Zig. Oh, I forgot the type. By the way, we'll be streaming for about another 30 minutes at most. I have some meeting I have to get to after this, but hopefully we'll be streaming a lot more into the future. Did I try it? Let's see. Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah. Well, still, this is important. I do appreciate that these things have to be required. So I'll put in the color. Coffee is not enough. Okay, cool. So this was a test. So it looks like it doesn't scale the sprite. It only draws a section of the sprite. So I'm not sure how we end up doing this. Let's just increase the width and height real quick. Well, increase the height to test my hypothesis that the it's only drawing a section of the texture instead of just drawing the whole texture but scaled, which I was just assuming I was going to do. And it tiles it as well, apparently. What was the suggestion we saw online? I thought it said give it a negative width or something, but negative width is what they said. So let's just test their hypothesis. So I'm guessing it's just applying UVs, so it's gonna just like put the coordinates of the vertices that were on the right on the left effectively, and because it's tiling, it's gonna work. Okay, so that does work. If we flip the width, that does work. Okay. So we do have a problem with this, though, is that we have to give the proper size. We want the size of the width and height to match the size of the the sprite. Okay, so can we get that information from the texture 2D? Maybe. Let's see. Oh, we do have the information. So thank you for Raylib for being, well, for being straightforward. This is what you want all these kind of libraries that are using to quickly put together games, is like, when you think the way things should work, just work, right? What's the problem? Expected type FJ font cint. Can we cast a cint like this? So I guess I understand why it takes a float as a width and height, but still. Oh, we need F32. The startup phase of the build is pretty slow. Okay, so I think that works. We can do that. Okay, and so now we're just gonna multiply the width by our flip flag, basically, right? Do we have that stored here? No. So we're gonna have to add a flip flag to our drawing state, basically. So let's go ahead and do that. Or we can do scale. How do I do it? Do you want scale or? You know what? Just for convenience sake, let's just go ahead and add a scale. So X scale, we'll make it a F32. Equals 0. Well, like 0. Is that how we? In Zig, I'm not quite sure how we do it. So Y scale F32 equals 0. 0.0. And then we could, you know, just multiply. Let's make it 1 at first, right? Not 0. And so when we actually prepare draw state, we need to get the flip state of it, right? And the flip state we store in the transform. Is that where it was? Component. Physics, none of physics. Where do we store that? Was it in the... or facing? I thought we had supported that already. Did we not support facing? We supported facing because the character's getting knocked back in that one way. I'm just have to search all files. Just search my project, not anything else. I thought we had a flip flag. Hold on. Where's the physics system? Because they get knocked back. Yeah, where's our reaction system as well? Yeah, so... I swear we supported it, but maybe that's all my mind. Yeah, we should have knockback. Also, we have not support flipping yet. Okay. I thought we had done it, but... Oh, thank you, Mighty Sandwich, for as. I'll have to keep that in mind. So yeah, we did not support flip yet. I thought we had done it, but I guess because I got distracted by implementing the sprites. I didn't do it. So let's talk about the supporting flipping. Let's just go ahead and add this here. Okay, so for now, let's just test that part of the pipeline supporting the flip sprites, and then we'll get into the actual gameplay side. So let's go back to our game. So what we need to do is, in our draw state, prepare draw state, somewhere we're going to support flipping. So it's going to say draw state dot flipped. Whoops. X scale is going to equal to -1.0. right? This is just a test. And so let's, so right now we have -1 times the width, right? Or did I remove that? This, if we could multiply it here, we can multiply it there. I'll just multiply it up here because it is a float. So state dot x scale, and we'll do y scale as well in case in the future we want to do something with the y scale. Okay, so does that work? Okay, so they are facing left right now, and if I go back and I undo this, they should be facing right. Okay, it's cool. So our next step is to add the data to our component, right? The flip state. So what are we pulling in here that we could actually read? We're getting the game data, we're getting the character data, we're getting the action. Action is not going to store the flip state. What's going to be stored, it should be in the transform, right? So where do we have that? Component, it should be in the physics. Okay, we put everything in the physics component, right? We don't have a transform component. This is fine, we can keep everything simple. So it's going to go here. So we're going to say, we're going to make it very simple. Oops. We're going to have a Boolean. So facing right should be, the default's going to be facing right. In some games, it's actually facing left. I think it's a lot come from like manga and Japanese games where they're reading stuff from right to left. So, but I'm going to do facing right as a default. So facing right is going to be true. Or we could do facing left and check the condition. Facing left should mean -1, right? So it doesn't really matter that much. So let's just say facing left is false. Oops. Facing left is a bool, and it's equal to false, right? Okay. And then what we can do is go in here, and we can go if facing left, and we'll have to get our physics. Where do we get our physics state here? Do we even get physics? No, we do. We do get the position. So, yeah. And so if we are facing left, we're going to flip it. I'm just going to move this up here too, where we update the screen space and stuff. And actually, we can just go ahead and initialize that to here. We'll just do that here. We could actually do, it is Zig, so we could technically like kind of like embed this here, but I think that just makes things a little more, less readable. So right now they're not flipped, right? If we change the default, instead of being false, true, this is just testing whether our code pipeline works. Okay, so now we're facing left. So we've now planned, implemented, and tested sprite flipping through our from our game simulation state to the draw state. Okay, so we verified that. So draw sprite flipped when the character, the entity, is facing left. Okay. You could have named this flipped, but it's ambiguous, right? Naming something flipped is like you have to know that the right is the default. That's an assumption that not everybody's going to make necessarily. Okay, and then depending on the context, it could be different. So let's support that. So what we've done, let's go ahead and just write that down in our planning document. So we haven't done that yet. So support flip knockback physics. So we haven't done any of this yet. I don't think we're gonna do all of it today. Let's just say, oops. Yeah, all our planning stuff's still here. Let's just say at some point we're gonna do this month. We did this. Let's just, yes. We kind of prioritize what to do next. Support drawing flip sprites. We have done that. Well, that's complete. Great. Okay, how much time we got left here? We're about to hit that hour mark. I'll do 10 more minutes and I'll be good to go. Okay, so support flipped physics. Right now, what's going on in our physics system is at the top here. I'll probably move this out into another file very soon. What's going on right now with our knockback of our physics system is we're just adding the knockback to the position, right? So what we're doing is we're adding knockback, which comes from the hit properties, to the position, and then we reduce the knockback every frame by a certain amount. And that's the fixed value we have here. Probably would like to move this to some kind of like gameplay constants or gameplay settings so we can manipulate those to make it more, that's one of those like craft side of game development things. But yeah, just leaving that as is. What we need to do, depending on whether or not they're flipped or not, we will apply this. So what we'll do here now is we got component dot facing left. So if they're facing left, so here's the basic logic. If they're facing left, do this. Otherwise, do this, right? If they're facing left, knock them to the left. Sorry, that's wrong. If they're facing left, knock them to the right. If they're facing right, knock them to the left. That's the basic rule right now. That's what a lot of fighting games do. You always get knocked back in the direction you're facing. I think I showed last time like Guilty Gear and Street Fighter work differently, or it's like a lot of Arc Sys games work differently. Even maybe Marvel works differently. I'm not sure. I have to go check that out. But some games vacuum you into things. If you cross someone up and they're still facing this way, you get vacuumed in. I prefer in my games for characters to generally be knocked away no matter what. But here, I'm just going to do this for simplicity's sake. But I just want to note that games do this differently. Okay, so when you're facing left, this is when you get knocked to the right. When you're facing right, you get knocked to the left. Okay. So we're going to how are we going to test this part of the code? Well, let's write a simple sentence that explains this. So knock the entity back depending on which direction they are facing. Okay, that's very simple. And so by default we're facing left, right? So we can test that, I think. In the future, we're gonna hopefully I can get to the point where we're looking at the very subtle bugs that these kind of things can cause. But the game is so simple right now, we may not even be able to reproduce those bugs. Okay. Look, so see how they get knocked, no matter what, right now they're getting knocked in reverse because the character is facing right. Okay, so if we go in to our, make sure they're facing left, then it should be knocked this way, right? Okay, so I have to come over here. There's a bug with the walk thing there. I'll have to work on that. See, now they're being knocked right, opposite direction they're facing. So what we can do here, make that not default, but when we initialize the characters in our game, do we put it here? Yeah. So what we can do is set the default flip state, right? So 0 is facing right, so that's false. And entity number 1, entity index 1, entity number 2, it's going to be facing left. Okay. So we should get that result now just by changing that. And there we go. It's knocked back that way. even if I'm behind them. What I want to do in the future is flip the character when they get hit. So if you somehow you cross them up and you're still facing this way, the character needs to flip that way. This is how most fighting games handle it, by the way. King of Fire games are a little bit weird. You can actually hit someone when they're facing opposite direction and they'll get knocked this way and they'll never be flipped back. This is the way the SNK tends to handle it. I could show that sometime in the future. So let's get back to our planning document. What have we accomplished? Well, we haven't supported flip physics, but we have supported flip knockback physics. Okay. So that's done. What we need to do in the future, flip the character to face the attacking opponent on hit. Because we don't want them to have that situation we saw before where the character's not facing you, you hit them, and they get sucked into you like that. We want to flip them and knock them away. Again, that's how most fighting games do handle it. Okay, I think this is a good stopping point. Talked a little bit about game dev work, and we got some stuff accomplished here. Just to review, we implemented flipping the sprite. We use a very simple technique that's pretty common in 2D in 2D rendering, where you just scale the width of the sprite by -1. That's pretty common. So when done that, we added the facing left variable. I said I named it facing left instead of flip to make it less ambiguous. I think that's an important point when writing code, to make stuff less ambiguous. So when that's true, you can do the non-default thing, which is draw the sprite flipped. And then we added to the knockback physics, we check whether or not the character is facing left. When they're facing left, we knock them to the right. When they're not facing right, they're facing left. Another way to think about that is, since player 2, you think of player 1 as a default character and player 2 as the exception. Well, the opposite. So, of course, you'll be checking if they're facing left, because that is the exception. Okay, I think that's about it. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I have only a few minutes here before I have to go, but go ahead and ask. I do appreciate everybody who's dropped by after a long time. Again, I do apologize for making you all wait so long. It's so, I've been wanting to stream. I like doing these. I like the planning aspect of it. I like talking about, the thought process that goes into this. So it's something that feel like it's been missing from my life for quite a few weeks. So I'm glad to get back to it. I think I got most of my errands and life things taken care of, so I shouldn't have any major interruptions for the rest of the year. But yeah, that being said, again, thank you all for dropping by. I don't really see anybody ask anything in the chat. Hopefully it's not frozen. I hope to see you all very soon. Next week, I guess the plan would be I could stream on a Tuesday for our time, so it'll be Monday evening out in the States. So I look forward to that. We'll be supporting the flipping the character and some more physics revolving flipped. Cool. Well, until then, I hope you all have a nice evening out in the States. If you're out here in Asia or Europe, enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time, see you soon.